evening and welcome to another edition of Electricity Town Hall, a program being sponsored by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, aimed at keeping consumers of electricity abreast of happenings in the nation's power sector. This program comes your way every Monday on the network service of Radio Nigeria at 7 o'clock in the evening. NERC is the regulator for the nation's power sector, interfacing with electricity generation companies, known as GENCOs, the transmission companies of Nigeria, TCN, and the distribution companies, DISCOs. I am David Omoro, your anchor. The Nigerian Electricity Supply Industry (NERC) is a framework for electricity generation, transmission, and distribution in Nigeria. It's a critical sector that plays a vital role in Nigeria's economic development, fueling industries and improving the standard of living. However, the NERC faces ongoing challenges such as providing reliable and affordable power to a growing population. One area that has remained critical has been the distribution sector, where consumers are given electricity and in turn required to pay for services rendered. Owing to issues surrounding electricity supply, consumption and bills, the federal government has introduced several initiatives geared towards protecting the consumer while also providing the investor the enabling environment to get returns on their investment. Today we will focus on how to get a meter. Discussions will be around a meter asset provider process, framework reforms and penalties. How much does the consumer know concerning the processes involved in obtaining an electricity meter? These and more will be interrogated tonight on Electricity Town Hall as we look at metering initiatives in the Nigerian electricity supply industry, NERC. And we have in the studio an Assistant General Manager of NERC, Mrs. Chigozie Azikiwe. Welcome to our studio.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Also, we have two senior managers of the Commission, Suhel Mshebwala and Ruth Ayodele. Good to have you with us on the program also.
We're glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here as well.
Likewise. So I'll begin with you, Chigozie. What can a customer who has an outrageous monthly electricity bill do? And when I say outrageous, I mean legitimate outrageous electricity bill.
So when you say outrageous, it means that it doesn't show what you feel you have consumed within the month. So the easiest thing for you to do is to complain to your DISCO. Lodge a complaint to say, this doesn't look like what I've consumed. And there's already a cap that the Commission has set. The way we organize it is on a feeder where there's metered and unmetered customers. If you are unmetered, your energy cap will be average of all the metered customers on the feeder. And that's how the Commission came up with the energy cap. So a DISCO that charges over that, there's a process to follow. But the best thing for a customer to do is to get a meter. Just go through your DISCO, apply for a meter, and have that peace of mind. A meter will help you check what your consumption is, calculate your energy accounting specifically. That's what a meter does. So that's the best thing for you to do.
Is it possible that even when you have a meter, you feel some months you recharge a specific amount, and then definitely one particular month you just realize that your unit finished a lot faster than usual?
It happens. It happens, but it has to do with your own consumption. So you look at what you have in the house. Is it your fridge? Is it your air conditioner? Do you have more people in the house consuming? Do you have maybe what's the weather like? So many things affect consumption. And that's why you need a meter for energy accounting. That's the best thing that will show you really this is what you consumed. Unless the meter is faulty, then there's a redress system for that. But the best thing for you to do is to have a meter through your DISCO.
Okay. You're the ones who put discounts for what customers consume. It's not more like something you can negotiate and say, no, bring it down this way. No, bring it down this way for me.
No,
you just put the cap.
You can't do that. So the cap is dependent on your DISCO. Every month, the Commission comes up with the caps per feeder. So a feeder is where customers are connected to. I don't want to go too technical. So per feeder, there's a cap for customers connected to the feeder. So what we do is every month, the Commission comes up with a cap per feeder, per DISCO.
Every month?
Yes, every month.
Is it usually reviewed upward?
It depends. It depends really on what the average consumption is for that month.
Okay.
So it could go up, it could go down, but there's an average that is the commission comes up with for the month.
When you were going to say it could go up, it could come down, you didn't even come down before you went back up.
Because I know what you wanted to say, but that's how it's done. So there's a process. We don't just arbitrarily come up with the energy caps. There's a process.
Okay, I'm talking about meters, right? Is it possible for customers to buy meters on their own? And if yes, how can they go about it?
Okay, first, it's a two-pronged. I have two answers to that.
Okay.
Number one, no. So you can't go to a shop to buy a meter. You can't, even though you see a meter somewhere, you can't just buy a meter. Okay. You need to buy a meter through the channels that are regulated by the commission. Okay. And that channel includes MAP. We have the MAP. There are different interventions. But you can't just, as a customer, walk into a shop to buy a meter. Oh. Why? Because there are standards. So in the NERC, we have metering code. We have the metering code for end user meters. We have the metering code as well for grid meters and the rest, but we're not discussing that now. So the best thing for you to do is go through your disco, first of all, and then make sure you buy the meter through your disco.
Okay, talking about getting meters through discos now, is it possible to go to another disco to get a meter? So
if you are in AEDC, for instance, and that's where you live, you need to go to AEDC to get your meter.
Okay, any
it
AEDC.
has to be in your franchise area. Okay. So discos have franchise areas. For instance, in Abuja, in Lokoja, in some parts in Kogi, it's AEDC.
Okay, meaning you can go to anywhere, even if you reside in Lube, you can go to Maitama and buy a meter, but not out of Abuja?
It depends on your, first of all, you have to approach your business units. Okay. Then you can now go to the headquarters, but it has to be AEDC. You can't go to maybe Ikeja disco to look for a disco for AEDC. No. Because each disco has its peculiar infrastructure requirements and things like that. So you need to buy from your disco. Okay,
you went a bit technical, and I wanted to to explain that when you mentioned the map, but I'll let Sorel do that. So over to you, Sorel. Can you briefly explain the MAP framework process to guide customers who are listening?
Oh, yes, of course. The MAP process, well, let me start. What is MAP? MAP is the Meter Asset Provider Scheme. So essentially, it's a regulatory intervention introduced by the Commission. And what that does is it introduces third parties into the metering space. So when I say third parties, we have, not to go too technical, we have the transmission, distribution, and then the generation. So these are third-party companies that are now allowed to come and install meters. So essentially what they do is to finance, procure, supply, and install these prepaid meters. So it was introduced in 2018, and then it has certain key features. One of them is the deregulation of the MAP meter price. So the deregulation, at first when we started in 2018, 2019, the Commission used to set the meter price at different intervals. So based on maybe inflation goes up or something happens, then we adjust the price accordingly. But in 2024, the Commission, in its wisdom, decided to deregulate it. So in essence, of all the MAPs, that's the meter asset providers, the different third-party companies that are, working in that space, they come every month and then they bid the price. So in essence, it's just like to boost competition, just like you have in the filling stations. How much is it today? How much is it tomorrow? So every month, then the price runs for a month or 2 months. They bid the price, and then the customer has the right to choose which meter asset provider. So if you quote, for example, 5 naira, I quote 10 naira. The customer can say, no, I prefer the 5 naira, because what in essence, after the bid, all the discos are supposed to publish their prices on the website. So as you were asking, how do you get a meter? There are different options, either through online options. So when you go to disco's website, you should see all the maps in that franchise area and their prices, or you could walk into the disco's business units, and then the prices are also displayed there, and then the customer service representative can also guide you through that process. Good thing about MAP is because it is customer driven. Okay. So the discos cannot force you. So when your bill is too high, what can you do about it? You can say, well, I can just go in and then pay for a meter. And then that meter, when you pay, you don't wait for it forever. There's a specific timeline that meter has to be installed. And the MAPs are obligated to install that meter within 10 days. So the process, you go to the disco, you apply. The disco will come and check your premise, because your premise has to be meter ready and truly to ascertain, are you really their customer? Yes, they're the customer. Your premise is ready. Then they now issue an invoice for the meter price based on the company you have chosen. Then after you make that payment, then 10 days after that, you should have a meter installed. But you don't just pay and then that's it. you get refunded. You get refunded because ideally the DISCO should provide the meters for you. But since you are now making that payment, the DISCO has to now refund you. And that refund comes through energy credits. So when the meter is installed, month on month, when you recharge or you vend, you would see the refund. So you should see on the receipt, yes, for example, you bought 10,000 naira worth of units. You should see this is 10,000 naira worth of units I bought. Then there should be another line, or there is another line that says, this is for your MAP meter refund. So that keeps on showing on your receipt till that cost of that meter is fully paid back to you.
Okay, I
Yes.
think I'll be more critical when I look at my receipts now.
But the thing is that, have you paid for a meter? Did you pay
Yes,
for a
I
MAP
have
meter?
paid for a meter.
Oh, awesome.
I paid for a meter. I
Has it
think.
been installed?
It's been installed twice, and I'm not sure. I used one for about 7 years, and I'm not sure I noticed.
Was it under the MAP framework? That's another question.
Well, when we're giving these meters, you just give it a meter, nobody's explaining what initiative you're getting under.
Yeah.
Again, you said something about the MAP not being forced on you.
Yes.
So when there is an obvious customer who is consuming much more than the cap for that area,
Yes.
how do you go about that? Do you end up forcing him to get a meter or not? Let's say you have an area where your cap is about 20,000. You put a
Yes.
cap for 20,000 fixed bill. But now you're looking at this particular consumer and you know obviously that this person has appliances and is consuming so much more than 20 per month.
So in instances like that, what the DISCO needs to do is they should meter you. They don't have to wait for you to go.
And but
pay
you
for the
just said they
meter.
can't force.
Yes, that's a different thing.
Okay.
Like in metering, as I said, the DISCO is responsible to meter. So they have a rollout plan because they have to meter. Maybe they're metering based on areas. Like in Abuja, they have Nasarawa, Niger, and Kogi, for example. So let's say their plan is to meter Kogi, then they'll do Nasarawa, then they'll do Niger, then they'll do Abuja. And you reside in Abuja. And you say, no, I can't wait for them to go all these states and come to Abuja. Then you can key into MAP and get metered within 10 days. Okay. But if there's this customer that you mentioned that the DISCO fails and knows that it's coming way above, they can say, you know what, we will not wait for our metering plan to get to Abuja and maybe get a meter from the Kogi and say, let's meter this guy today.
Okay, so when the DISCOs are losing, they know how to
Because
make sure they
that's
get
the
the meter.
loss.
Oh, that's a loss.
That's the
right?
revenue loss. So the
Okay.
DISCO needs to ensure the customer is metered for proper energy accounting.
Okay, thank you so much for that. You mentioned refund.
Yes.
Okay, it said something about it that over time, when you buy units, it will be given to you. Can that be negotiated? Because you're saying if I make payment for the meter, you will
Yes.
give me over time.
Yes, so refund
More like
over
it's
time.
as good as free now, right? So why don't you just do the free from the beginning?
Then you wait for the DISCO metering plan, the rollout plan, as I said, because you can't determine when it'll come to you. It's like you're on a list.
Okay.
So you don't know, are you number 10, are you number 101? So waiting endlessly for that list, then you now, can now key into the map. But if you want, you can wait, and then you will definitely be metered at some point.
Okay, definitely. Thank you so much. We'll be taking a short break, and when we return, we'll look at metering initiatives targeted at addressing gaps in Nigeria power sector. Stay with us.
This is Electricity Town Hall on the network service of Radio Nigeria. We will be back shortly.
Do you have a faulty or obsolete meter? Your DISCO must fix or replace your meter for free, provided you have not tampered with it. Report meter issues to your DISCO. For details on customer rights and obligations, visit www.nerc.gov.ng or contact the NERC call center via 0201 344 4331. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC. NERC, keeping the lights on.
We are back with Electricity Town Hall on the network service of Radio Nigeria.
Thank you so much for staying with us. It's still Electricity Town Hall on the network service of Radio Nigeria. And we're discussing metering initiatives in Nigerian electricity supply industry. And our focus today is on how to get an electricity meter. And we have in the studio an Assistant General Manager of NERC, Mrs. Chigozia CQA. Once again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And also we have two senior managers of the Commission, Suruhel Michelle Boala and Ruth Ayodele. Thank you once again for being with us today on the program.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll begin with you, Ruth, on this one. What metering reforms initiatives has the government introduced to address the significant metering gaps in the Nigerian electricity supply industry?
Okay, just as the DISCOs have several rollout plans to meter their customer, the government also have rolled out several initiatives, and one of such is the capping, which was introduced in 2013. And through the capping, over 410,000 customers benefited from it. Okay. Meters were given to customers, and some customers could testify to that. Another one which was rolled out in 2020 was the NMMP, which is the National Mass Metering Program. This was funded by the CBN, and in phase 0, over 130,000 meters were installed. Another one which was launched recently by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the Presidential Metering Initiative, which was launched in 2023, and it was to address the persistent issue of estimated billing and the losses the DISCO keep complaining about. So under this, the MAF was introduced in June 2024, and it was to address the financing constraints. Under this MAF, about 40,000 Bandi customers have benefited from it. They've gotten meter under this MAF.
The PMI?
Yes.
Okay.
Under MAF. Another one which was just introduced is DISREP, Distribution Sector Recovery Program. It is supported by the World Bank and it aims to deliver 3.2 million meters by 2026. So these are some of the presidential initiative and the government initiative to address the issue of metering.
Okay, let's take it from statistics point of view. What has been the success rate ever since the metering initiatives came into being?
Over 50% customers have been metered.
Or more like over 50% of the households in Abuja under the A. Is it
not
nationwide?
No, nationwide.
Okay, nationwide. Over
Yes,
50% of the households.
50% of electricity consumers.
Yes,
have been metered. So there's significant progress, and we hope to make more progress through the initiative and through the map as well.
Okay, and how about the inner cities, I would say, or like in rural areas that also have access to electricity? Are there any challenges getting into those areas?
There are not much challenges like that because the DISCOs have been able to solve those issues. And also the rural electrification agencies addresses rural areas.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. And it looks like Chikoze, you want to add something.
Oh, yes, I do. So for the rural areas, some of the customers there are metered. So the DISCO actually gets in there to meter them because these meters are not like they are big equipment. If a DISCO needs to meter its customer to be able to cover up its cost, its loss there in the area, the DISCO will, of course, find a way to get there. But what we've noticed is that some of these customers, what they require really is supply from maybe renewables or IMGs, mini-grid solutions that are not really under the framework of the DISCO, right? So if that is the case, then it will be like the developer or whoever is in charge of that area under the mini-grid regulation that will meter. Okay. So sometimes customers are not really under a DISCO per se. So when you say AEDC, you see a customer that is really under maybe a franchise area but still under AEDC. I don't want to be too technical.
No.
But when it comes to metering,
how to break it down. When you say it's possible for a customer not to be under a DISCO, how?
Yes. So let me go deeper a little bit.
Okay.
So AEDC can give a third party.
Okay.
Carve out a part of its franchise area to a third party. That is called franchising. You know how you have Burger King, Chicken Republic, KFC, they're all franchises from the US. So it's the same business model. ADC can carve out a particular portion of its franchise area to say, I'm giving it to maybe Suhel and Company to administer my type of operations, but still within my licensing terms and conditions. It's called franchising. And there's a guideline that backs that, a framework that the Commission has come up with. So in that regard, it is the franchisee that will now meter in such areas, right? So metering mustn't be done by the DISCO, in quotes. It can be done by the third party that the DISCO has assigned that area to.
All right, no problem. And in this circumstance, I think I will be handing you the invoice for Burger King franchise.
That's okay.
For the short advert.
Okay, I'll be okay with that.
Okay, still with you, Chikoze. Given the outlined steps consumer must follow to acquire a meter, what penalties are in place for non-compliance with metering framework established by the NERC?
So one of the key things that the Commission does is customer protection. we don't joke with our customers because that's where the revenue comes from. So fairness, customer protection, and that's why we have a very robust enforcement regulation. But apart from that, the DISCOs, the entities that are in charge of metering, which are the DISCOs and the MAPs, we have penalties for each of them. So for the DISCOs and the MAPs, if a customer has paid and you do not meter within 10 days, there's a penalty, monetary penalty that is applicable to the MAP and the DISCO. And then under the energy cap that I said as well, if a DISCO charges you over the cap that the commission has come up with for your DISCO in a month, there's also a fine. If you recall recently, about a month ago, it was on the news, the commission charged about 8 DISCOs, over 628 million or so, fine for overcharging customers under the capping framework. So that's one of the penalties as well. Enforcement regulation is always robust enough to make sure that the DISCOs are in check, the MAPs are in check, and then there's also the refund as well. If you pay and you're not refunded within the stipulated time, there's also a penalty for that. Okay. So everybody, you have your rights as a customer, you have your obligations as a customer. A DISCO has its rights, has its obligations. So everybody has a role to play. And when you are not in line with your terms and conditions of maybe either your licensing or your permits, there's a penalty for that. And there's something that he didn't mention. For MAPs, they are authorized by the commission. They are given permits.
Okay.
So if you have that permits, you have your license, your terms and conditions, which you must abide by. When you do not, it can actually be revoked.
Okay.
It can be suspended or revoked. So that you're a MAP doesn't mean you will forever be a MAP. The commission takes note, the commission monitors performance of these MAPs. So when you do not perform within the guidelines, you can be suspended. And that's what keeps them in check.
Okay.
So yes, we have a very...
Thank you so much, Chigozie. As we round off, let's just go, you said something about obligations. So what are these obligations for customers per se?
For a customer, we like to use the word customer because a customer pays, a consumer does not pay.
Okay.
So in the NERC, we say customer. Okay? So for a customer, it is your obligation to make sure that your premises is accessible to the DISCO. So a DISCO cannot come to your gate to say, we want to come in to check your meter, and you do not allow them in. In that case, you can actually be disconnected. So it's the right of a DISCO to go in and check your meter, and it's your obligation to open up your premises to the DISCO.
Okay, Surel.
Well, among the obligations, one that is very key is that you need to pay your bills, because money makes the world go round. If you don't pay the bills, then there's no way that they can supply the whole value chain. And just like she also mentioned, the customer is also obligated to look after the meter. So you can't say, hey, we just put the meter here. At least you have a duty of care to ensure that that meter is in good order, because you don't want to hear stories when they come to do these inspections and then maybe a bypass is found or something has happened to you, the meter has been tampered, and you say you have no knowledge of it. So you have, as a customer, you have obligation to look after the meter as well.
But I've seen cases where estates,
yes.
I think estates somehow, where they complain about this bypass and all, so they insisted that meters should be brought out of the compound and installed on the poles.
On the pole, yes.
And when it's installed on the poles, sometimes I might not be able to take care of this facility when it's on the pole outside of my perimeter fence.
Yes.
So in that case, when it's vandalized, what happens?
Then it has to be, well, it really investigated, really. But the first one is within your premise, then you are really obligated. But when it's pole mounted or high wall mounted, far out of your reach, there's usually a seal that is placed on that meter at the point of installation. And that seal is captured when it's installed. If they come back and that seal is broken, I'm sorry, you might be liable to do that, because really in the industry, there are all sort of stories that we hear about unauthorized access of what some, people, individuals will do to this meter or do to the metering infrastructure and deny. So really at that point, some investigation is done. And, DISCOs have a way of doing all these kind of investigations, among which are interviews. Some are whistleblowers. Mm-hmm. So maybe people in the neighborhood, maybe I'm paying and I feel pain that you are, taking energy without paying for it. Some do go and do whistleblowing and then report to the DISCO, and the DISCO is aware that XYZ customer has tampered the meter or something like that.
Okay, thank you very much. So finally, as we wrap up, any contact that customers, as you said, customers can reach to make complaints and all of that? Are there contacts you want to share, social media handles and all? Since, I don't want to say consumers now. Consumers are the ones I have in my house running around.
Consumers do not pay. I hope you're not a consumer.
Those unemployed.
So NERC is on Instagram. If you search NERC on Instagram, we're there. We are on X, formerly Twitter. We're also on LinkedIn, very active on social media. And our website is also one that all customers should please visit. We have all our regulations there. We have all our activities, pictures, documents. Our website is actually one of the best. I'm proud to say that.
Okay, I want to just add that the consumer protection right is also on the website. So as a customer, you have obligation to read the rights. So know your rights and obligation as well.
Yeah, so if any customer has any issues that they want to reach out, the NEC, our organization, has a call center, and we can be reached on 090-88-999-244. I take that again, 090-88-999-244. So that's the NEC call center. So anywhere you are within Nigeria, you can actually place a call to that number.
Thank you so much, Michelle Voila, on that one. And this is where we end today's edition of Electricity Town Hall on the network service of Radio Nigeria. We have been speaking with an Assistant General Manager of NERC, Mrs. Chigozie Azikiwe, and two senior managers of the Commission, Suhel, Michelle Voila, and also Ruth Ayodele.
Thank you very much for having us.
Okay, thanks to the production team, Studio Manager Phineas Udeyo, Facilitator Conrad Labe, Producer Sunday Goche. Special thanks to our executive producers, Hussein Akila and Msushima Ki. I am David Umoru. See you next Monday for another insightful edition of Electricity Town Hall. Goodbye.